Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. If we have any new people on the call, welcome to Virtual Cafe Oleh. My name is Jay, I'm a volunteer with Nefesh B'Nefesh, and the idea is that we teach here practically minded Hebrew. We answer your questions, and it's really about the Hebrew, whether or not you're learning in an ulpan, whether or not the Hebrew you're learning in an ulpan is actually relevant to what you're doing and where you are in life. Really the everyday Hebrew that you use on the streets, whether it's here in Tel Aviv, wherever you live here in Israel, or perhaps not in Israel yet. And taking your questions, answering questions you have, and also sharing a little bit at the beginning. So what I thought we'd do today, before getting to your questions, is to review something we went over a few weeks ago. It's always good to review, even though Nefesh B'Nefesh records these. I think it's good to go back and review every once in a while. So I'm just looking over the last few lessons that we had a while ago. The one I think that's the most, well, they're all relevant, but what I'd like to go over just for everyday stuff, especially as we get, no, I think this is every day. It's not even towards anything. I want to go over abbreviations and acronyms again, because I think that's an important one. We may not always recognize them in Hebrew. We may not know what they stand for. So I want to go through some of the classic ones. And if you have any that you know of that you encounter, please write them in the chat window. I'll get to all your questions once I'm done. The chat window is there for you, and we'll also allow you to speak aloud at that point if you need to. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Get it open. Awesome. So what I have here is a number of common abbreviations that you'll find in everyday Hebrew. Let me just see if I can make the window a little bit bigger for you. Zoom. Cool. What I have here is everyday abbreviations you find. Now, just a reminder, abbreviations in Israel, in Hebrew rather, work a little different than in English. In Hebrew, they are most commonly found, as you see in this very first line, row 4, there are 2 apostrophe marks made between the second to last and last letters. The second to last penultimate, if you like that word. One of these apostrophes, the formal word in Hebrew is geresh or geresh. 2 of them are gershaim or gershaim. These are also known, one apostrophe is known in slang as a chupchik. You've probably heard this word a lot, chupchik. An abbreviation in Israel, or an acronym, is usually 2 of these guys, 2 of these apostrophe marks between the second to last and last letters. You will see some exceptions to the rule. In fact, one of them we're going to show here in a little bit, but that's typically, you know, when you see that, that is an abbreviation. Right, let me just get rid of the WhatsApp notifications, as sweet as they are. They'll go away. Nope, okay, I'll fix that in a bit. Anyways, that's the normal way you do it. You will see some, like I said, but that is typically what you will find. Sorry, let me just get back to that. There we go, okay. And that's obviously different in English, of course. In English, we either use periods, we use dots, or we use the first letters of each word, and we don't use any punctuation. So the classic one, obviously, has been in the news in the last few days, is UAE, right? That's what we say in English. UAE stands for United Arab Emirates. In Hebrew, we don't, at least as of now, we don't have an acronym for it or an abbreviation. We simply just say Ichud Emiriot. The Ichud is unity, Emiriot, Emirates. It's implied an emirate is Arab, so there is no Arab usually used in the name of it, but Ichud Emiriot, UAE, United Arab Emirates. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go through some of the classic ones that you see all the time on the street, newspapers, online. There's a whole bunch of others that I'm not including here. If you have any others, feel free to write them in the chat, or if you've seen them before, you want to know if they have, I'm happy to answer those. Okay, so the very first one is Ba'am. Ba'am, as you see here, the acronym is in the column F, and the full word is right to the left, and then how you pronounce the full word. Some of these you pronounce as its own word, and some of these you just pronounce, you just write the, you just say out the names of the letters. So each one is going to be slightly different, as you'll hear. The first one is Ba'am. It becomes its own word. Ba'am in Hebrew stands for Be'ilvon Mugbal, or this is for the Non-Americans LLC, a limited liability corporation, for the Americans rather, and for the non-Americans, this is a limited corporation. This is a company in Israel. When you want to know if someone is a company or not, a for-profit company, you will see Ba'am listed at the end of the name of their company's name, right? I happen to be self-employed. I'm not Ba'am. I'm just Atzmai. I do have a name of my company, but there is no Ba'am because it's not a limited liability company. But when you see Ba'am and it's pronounced Ba'am, as I wrote here as the transliteration, you know that's a for-profit company. Very simple. Okay. Next one is one you've probably seen quite a lot, or you've heard this word a lot. You didn't necessarily know it stood for something, is Nadlan. Nadlan is the abbreviation we use for real estate. In the full abbreviation, I can't pronounce it correctly because it's actually Aramaic, not Hebrew, but it translates to immobile properties, right? So what is real estate? It's basically property that doesn't move. It's immobile. So as I'm just looking at the full words here. But Nadlan refers to any kind of real estate for sale, for rent, commercial, residential, anything like that. Nadlan is the word for real estate in Hebrew. Okay. Moving along, and here's where you're going to see a little bit of a, of an exception, is the word for milligram. So milligram in Hebrew is milligram. We don't have our own weights and we have our own weights and measures in Jewish tradition, but that are the exact equivalent words in Hebrew for metric we don't have. So we simply just use the Latin. So in this case, milligram. Milligram, if you look on your either your ingredients labels, whether that's food, whether that's medicine, you're going to see it abbreviated two different ways. One is with that traditional two apostrophes, like you see here on the right in the column F, row 6. And the other one is mem gimel geresh, or mem gimel chupchik, if you prefer that word. Either of these mean milligram. You're going to see both of them for various reasons, but you're going to see both of them. You're probably going to see the second one, just the one geresh at the end, because it's one less character that takes up on the label. But it'll be written as that, as milligram, and it's pronounced, you don't say mem gimel. You simply, you recognize that it stands for milligram. So if you see that on a label and you're reading out a label, you would pronounce it as milligram, not mem gimel or mag or meg or anything like that. Okay? Same thing as the next one, millimeter. Millimeter, millimeter. Sorry, not sorry for those of you who are not used yet to the metric system, but this is a metric country. We do have words for the others, but they don't come with abbreviations, nor are they normally used in everyday measurements. So I know it's for fellow Americans, that's a bit of a challenge, but we'll get through it. Millimeter, this is how it's written, mem, mem. Mem can mean actually a lot of things in Hebrew. One of the things it also means is mimale makom. Mimale makom, mimale means filling or fills. Makom is a space. So mimale makom is someone who is, I don't know what the exact word in English is, but it's basically someone who is taking the place of someone else while they're on vacation. So for example, you'll see this a lot in job boards, right? A woman goes on maternity leave and they're looking for a mimale makom, someone who's going to fill that role while that person is away on vacation, maternity leave, whatever. Okay. We see this also in governmental level. There are certain positions that are temporarily filled. and the name of the person, the title of the person is Memale Makom, blah, blah, blah title. So mem you'll see quite a lot, but in this case, we're talking about millimeter. That's how it's usually abbreviated, and it's usually abbreviated. Okay. If you want to, well, we'll get to centimeter in a second. Okay, next one is a big one. You see this all the time. This is a big deal, especially in our day and age with the virus, is ma'am. Ma'am is an abbreviation for mas erech musaf. Mas is tax, T-A-X. Erech is value, erech is value, and musaf is added. So you put it all together, value added tax, VAT, right? In Israel, we have VAT. VAT is a standard tax that's applied to all goods and services, regardless of what they are. As opposed to, for example, sales tax in America, which not only differentiates by state, but by how much. In Israel, it is a flat 17% is VAT. Ma'am, you will see all the time. When you go to buy groceries or anything else in the store, the price that's listed on the label includes ma'am. And when you get the receipt, it will differentiate, and in the total, it will have a subline that will differentiate how much the cost is without ma'am and how much ma'am was by itself. Okay, but the price tag in Israel includes ma'am, where applicable. There are places where ma'am doesn't exist. The two biggest ones are Eilat. Eilat is a tax-free zone, and duty-free in the airport. Duty-free in the airport currently is on hiatus, understandably, but Eilat is still open for business. You will in fact see that if you buy any of the Israeli newspapers at the top, the masthead, the very top of the page, it'll have the price, and then next to the price, it'll say the price in Eilat, because the price in Eilat does not include VAT. Okay, so ma'am is a big deal. It's 17%. For those of you who don't know it, it does not change. 17% is the same for groceries. It's the same for car rental and hotel room and clothes and anything that takes VAT. Okay, the next one. The next one often gets people a little confused because they don't know what this is, and all of a sudden there's a long, weird number on a price tag, is makat. Makat stands for mispar katalogi. Mispar is a number. Katalogi is exactly what it sounds like. Catalog. This is simply the inventory number of an item. You'll see this written out all the time, whether it's online you're shopping or on a price tag in a store. And people often get a little flustered by this because they don't know what makat stands for. And they see this and they see some long number and they're thinking, oh my God, that's the price of it, or I don't know what's going on. It's simply just the inventory stock number. You don't have to worry about it unless you happen to be working in the store and need to know the inventory number. Doesn't apply to you, okay? Next one is centimeter. Now, centimeter, as opposed to millimeter, I have seen written with both with gilshayim, like as you see here, samech gilshayim mem, but I've also seen it written as samech mem geresh. Okay, so both of them mean centimeter, just like millimeter, but centimeter, there aren't many other things that are represented by samech mem, so you're pretty good to go with that. Okay. Another one that is price tag related is sachakol. This one we don't pronounce according to its acronym. We pronounce it by what it stands for. As you see here, samech hey gilshayim kaf stands for sachakol. Sachakol means total or altogether or the total sum. Okay, and you'll see this at the end of most receipts. It'll say either it won't be written out sachakol, it'll be written out samech hey gilshayim kaf, and that will be your total that needs to be paid with VAT. If it's without VAT, it will say sachakol lelo lamed lamed aleph and then ma'am, as we just had before. Okay, so sachakol, the total sum. Next one. Next one is Ein Gilshaim Yud, which stands for Al Yadei. Al Yadei means by. It literally means at the hands of. But Al Yadei, as it's written both out like this in full letters as well as abbreviation, means by. So anytime you want to say by, not by, for those of you who are religiously observant, not how people say, I'm going to spend Shabbat by someone. This is by as in such and such book is by something, or the tree is by the store, okay? This is Al Yadei. Or the poem is by such and such writer. That's what this by means, okay? Or as it literally means at the hands of. This poem is at the hands of the writer so-and-so, meaning that person wrote it. Next one, kilogram. Kilogram is typically written like this. I've seen it very rarely as Kuf Gimel Geresh or Kuf Gimel Chupchik, but it's usually Kuf Gelshaim Gimel, and that's for kilogram. Okay, so if you are in the Shuk, now in the Shuk, you will see two things. You will either see kilogram written like this, or you're going to see it written as, let me just quickly write it next to it. Okay. You're going to see either one of these in the Shuk, but also in grocery stores if you're looking to see what the price is. Kilogram or kilo. Okay, either of those mean kilogram. And that'll tell you what the price is. We have one actually I forgot up here, which is definitely relevant, way up. We'll go back in a second to it. Something got a little mushed, just a second. Yeah, okay. Another one you're going to see in the supermarket, but also in the shuk, is this very top one at line 2, which is Yechida. Yechida is usually abbreviated as Yud, Chet, Geresh, and that means a unit. Let's say you're going to the shuk and you see one of those plastic cartons full of something. It could be te'enim, figs, because that's fig season right now. It could be lychee, it's also lychee season. And the price will either be Yechida, Yud, Chet, Geresh, or it's going to be kilo. Okay, either one. You need to check that very carefully because sometimes people buy it and they actually end up spending a lot more than they expected because they're only able to buy the full unit, meaning the container, or they're buying it by a kilogram. So you want to look very carefully if it's per kilo, and it'll say kilo as I wrote here, or Kuf Gelshaim Gimel, or Yechida. Either one will tell you what the price is. Okay, very important one. Next one is Kamash. Now this one we do pronounce is Kamash, and Kamash stands for Kuf Mem Gelshaim Shin. Kamash stands for Kilometer Lesha'a. Kilometer Lesha'a is kilometer per hour, or in Israel, because again, metric units is kph. Americans, mph, you know that, miles per hour? This is kph, because we go by kilometers here, not kilograms per hour, kilometers per hour. Okay, so if you want to know what the speed is, the speed limit in a certain place, the sign on the highway, it'll be written, let's say it's Al-Ba'im, 40, it'll be Al-Ba'im Kamash, 40 kilometers per hour. Okay, so when you see that number, and it's usually it's a circle, the sign for the speed limit is a circle, the speed is in black numbers, and then there's a red circle around it. Okay, and that's Kamash, kilometers per hour. It's also, you know, the dial in your car, but you know that as well. Okay, and the last one is another one apropos stores, but very used all the time, is Shach. Shach stands for Shkalim Chadashim. Shkalim Chadashim is the official name of the Israeli shekel. Taking you on a little bit of a history tour, Israel did not always have what we call shach now. Before this, up until the 80s, or maybe even the 90s, it was the Israeli shekel. Before that, it was the Israeli lira. Shekalim Chadashim is the result of the last attempt at curbing inflation. We had massive inflation leading into the 1990s in Israel. And so the currency was re-evaluated and it became the Shekalim Chadashim. Shekel is from the Bible. It's a unit of weight and measurement from the Bible. We took that and used it as the name of our currency, although it didn't always be, it was. Like I said, it used to be the lira. And the current unit of currency in Israel is the Shekalim Chadashim. It's known as shach. You can just say shach. You'll hear that abbreviated like this. But equally important, look over on the left-hand side under transliteration. You see that symbol there? That is the symbol, just like the dollar sign or the pound sign or the euro sign. That is the sign for Israeli currency. And you'll see this on price tags and anywhere else. If they don't write shach like I did, shin, gerish, gerish, chet, you'll see this symbol on there. And if you look at it very carefully, it actually is shach, right? If you go from right to left, because we read Hebrew right to left, that first line that starts at the top and then goes down and curves to the left and up, that represents a shin. And then the next letter that looks like it's opposite, like it's flipped over opposite, that starts in the middle, goes up, turns to the left, and then goes down, is a chet. Altogether, that is the stylized form, just like we have in other languages, in other countries. That is the stylized unit of currency in Israel called the new shekel. All right, so if you ever want to know why you keep seeing that symbol or why it's called the new shekel, now you know. Before I get to your questions, I want to take you to one last abbreviation that you probably did not know was an abbreviation. We actually have a number of these in Hebrew, but this is probably the classic one that I myself did not know until I made Aliyah. I think is a great one. Let me see if I can open it up a bit. Is one that you probably know, you probably have on a regular basis, if not fresh, then certainly in the bottle, is tapuz. Sorry to break it to you, tapuz is not a one word in Hebrew. In fact, tapuz is an abbreviation, as you see here. Tapuz stands for tapuach zahav, a gold apple. If you look at all the different languages of the world and the word for orange and the color orange, the word for orange is usually about where it entered into their repertoire, into their diet. So many languages, for example, in Europe, use a word that's related to the word Portugal, because Portugal was one of the original importers into Europe of the fruit. Other places, such as in Arabic and in South Asia, use a word that comes from South Asian languages because one of its origins was via India. So tapuz is, even though we associate or used to associate the citrus industry and Jaffa oranges with Israel, it's a relatively new thing in Israel and in the land of Israel. And so much so that we don't have its own word, right? The word in Hebrew is literally golden apple. To describe what an orange is. We don't have its own individual words. This is the word, but just know that the word is actually an abbreviation. We don't spell it like this. We don't spell it with the Gelshaim at the end, but know that it does stand for a golden apple. Okay, with that, I'm going to pause. You see there was a bunch of questions. Let me get to them. Okay, great question. I'm going to start with the last one and then go to the other ones. So yes, one of the other ways you know that it's an abbreviation and not a word is that if a letter has a final version, it is not used in this. So that is why millimeter and centimeter is spelled with a regular mem, not a mem sofit. Why? Because it's standing for millimeter. Right? Just like in English, just like in Latin, it's two words that are put together. Milli, meaning whatever it is, 100 or 1,000, 100, no, 1,000, sorry. And meter, meter, right? So it's showing that it's comprised of multiple words. It's not just an abbreviation of a longer word. It's actually two different words. Same thing with centimetro. Centi, that one I know is 100. Meter, meter, right? So that's going to be the same for all of them. Because again, it's abbreviating the first letter of each word, not the last letter of each word. That's why the letters, regardless if they have a final letter or not, is very important. Okay, but great question. Okay, someone asked about natbag. Let me spell that out. So you may have heard this word. We've talked about this word quite a lot. Unfortunately, most people cannot access it right now, and it's probably a good thing you don't. Natbag. Natbag is the abbreviation for Israel's major international airport. It stands for, the nun is namal, port. Te'ufa is the taf, which means aviation. And then Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion. Okay, so all together we pronounce it as one word, natbag. You can pronounce it as, you can say the full thing, Namal Tufa Ben Gurion, Namal Tufa, but it's also just known as natbag. There's nothing else that's abbreviated like that in Hebrew, so you'll know that immediately. Someone's asking for UAE in Hebrew. Let me write it out. I believe it's Ichud He'amiriyot. I believe that's how it's spelled. I don't take my word for it. Let me transliterate it for you. Ichud He'amiriyot. Ichud He'amiriyot. Okay. Ichud Amiriyot. Ichud is unity or united. Amiriyot, Emirates, right? And Amir, Amiriyot, Emirates. Okay. So yes, that's UAE. I can't catch the consonants in Chukchik or whatever Gilshaim are. Can you please spell out the transliteration? Okay. So a Geresh, right? Geresh.
Okay. Excuse me, Jay. I meant, what are the consonants in Chipchuk? The slang word.
Chupchik.
Chupchik.
Write that out.
And isn't there also a word for right away, like chipchak or something? Like right away, or it's easy, it's quick. Chipchak.
Chik-chak.
Okay, I need to distinguish those two words.
You're not going to use chupchik very often. So first off, let me write that out. Chupchik, okay? Chupchik is that one apostrophe. And then chik-chak is written like this. Okay, chik-chak. Chik-chak means quickly, hurriedly. It's slang as well. That's also a good one to know. Okay, we had a few other questions. Dov, great question. So yes, doctor, you're going to see either abbreviated in two different ways. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. In Hebrew, even though we have the word rofeh, which means doctor, rofeh, we still typically abbreviate doctor as dalid gilshaim resh or dalid resh geresh. Either of them you'll see repeatedly as doctor. Okay. You'll see that even if you refer to your doctor as a rofeh or rofet, rofa. So yes, Dov, you're right. Let's see what else. Sorry, just going
I've also seen doctor as just Dalet Geresh Resh, like a whole list in the office, and there'll just be one in the middle because it's not two words. it's just a shortened single word.
That's rare to see. If you've seen that, that's interesting. It's typically one of the ones I wrote, but sometimes you will. And
Yeah.
that's
I copied Dent where I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time yesterday. It's a whole long list.
got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Joyce, yes, it's Girshaim with a resh. So whether you can say resh or resh, it's a resh. So gerish is one, Gershaim or two, but with a resh. Great question. Let's look at some of the other questions here. Naomi, if you're trying to say Saudi Arabia in Hebrew, we say Arava Saudit. So you just take off the mem at the beginning and you're right. Arab HaSaudit, the exactly as it is in English, Saudi Arabia. It's the Arabia is being modified by Saudi, which is the family that controls the country. Okay. Is it Stephen, it is not okay to write SH for shekel. You need to write NIS, just like USD is dollars and EURs for euros. You need to write either NIS or you'll sometimes see ILS. But you cannot just write SH. Or you can write the stylized currency symbol like I showed you on the thing. But yeah. Okay, Gerish. Gerish is, okay, the apostrophe, one apostrophe is a Geresh or Geresh. Two apostrophes are Gershaim or Gershaim, two of them together. Okay. All right, any other questions? It can be about anything else, not necessarily just abbreviations.
You guys can unmute yourself
That
now.
had to do with, someone was asking about pronunciation, and I used a very difficult word to say in Hebrew, and one of them is the plural. So Gilshayim are two of those apostrophes. Ketef is one shoulder. Two shoulders, because we have a dual conjugation in Hebrew, is ktafayim. So someone was asking previously about abbreviation, that's why it's on there. Okay. Helene, yes, like I said at the beginning, this whole recording will be available to you starting tomorrow, so you'll be able to follow along as it was shared. Irving, biyadacha or biyadcha, can you explain what you mean? If you can unmute yourself.
Is it biyadecha or biyadcha?
In modern Hebrew, we'll say biyadcha.
Okay.
We've talked about this before. It's a great question. In modern Hebrew, we're all about concise and being conservative when it comes to the number of syllables. So biyadcha, biyadecha. Right? So the one that has the less syllables will always win in modern Hebrew. In biblical, classical Hebrew, it's usually the longer one.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? Doesn't have to be about abbreviations.
Jay, this is Miri.
Yes.
Somebody just told me that I need a misgeret from my bank. And she tried to explain it. She said that's so they don't charge you too much if you accidentally overdraft. But I've never heard the term misgeret. Is that something you've heard of?
Yes, you should have a misgeret with your bank account.
Okay, so you mean I might have one already and I just don't know it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What is it?
So let me explain very quickly.
What does alul mean for something?
I'm writing the word in the chat in both Hebrew and transliteration for you. Misgeret. Okay. Misgeret means a It literally means a frame or a framework. When it comes to banking, it has to do with Misgeret Ashrai. Ashrai is the word for credit, meaning financial credit. And in a Misgeret Ashrai, remember in Israel that your credit card comes from your bank. There are very few, if any, non-bank issued credit cards. And your account comes a Misgeret Ashrai, meaning how much you have as credit. So for example, you'll hear a lot, and it's very true that most Israelis live in what we call minus or minus, meaning in any other country, they would be considered an overdraft. So if you go into your account, let's say you have a Misgeret of 1,000 shekel, right? You can be minus 15,999 shekel and be okay, because you're within your misgeret, you're within your credit limit, your credit framework that your bank gave to your account. And that's usually dependent on how much money you initially put into the account. If you are employed, how much money is coming in as your salary. If you are retired, how much money you have in your pension, so forth. Sometimes you can often change it every 6 months, sometimes every year. That's something you have to talk about personally with your bank. But when a bank account is opened, they will include a Misgeret Ashrai. Whether or not you have a credit card attached to it or not, you have part of your account. Some of them are very small, and some people actually request it to be very small so that they don't end up in a place of having a 16,000 shekel Misgeret and being only a few shekels away from it. Because if you pass it, then you're in overdraft, and that's not good. Okay, so Misgeret is something that almost all bank accounts should have. Typically, if you don't know about it before you sign up, it will be very low. So some people will have a lot of money in the bank, but they'll only have a Misgeret of 2,000 shekel. So if you often wonder why you can't do certain operations with your bank, you should check your Misgeret, because it could mean you actually have a lot of money in the bank. You just can't do anything with it with regards to credit because your Misgeret is so small. But that's a very important one to know on a regular basis, also to ensure you don't go into overdraft. Joyce, can you explain Zikui? In what context? Because Zikui can refer to a lot of things. Stores, great. Okay, Zikui. Zikui is a good word, right? Zikui means it comes from the same root as we have for prize. It's same as the root for the word innocent. So zikui is always a good thing. And I'll write it out in Hebrew so you can recognize that it's a good, when you see it, when you see this word, it is a good thing. As soon as I can, zikui. Zikui. Zikui means a lot of different things, like I just said. It refers to, at least with this shoresh, which is its root, its letter root. In this case, zikui means the amount that you have as, you have in like, oh my God, the English is escaping me. Let's say you return something, you don't get there's the refund. Oh my God, it's terrible. It's a credit after returned item, as Eileen said, with much better English than I did. It's your credit. So let's say you return something to a store and they don't issue you cash back. They'll offer you either zikui or achlafa. Zikui is credit to use in the store for the amount of that item was. And achlafa, let me write that word out as well. Achlafa is an exchange, right? So most places, it's now law, the time frame, I believe it's a week, you have to get cash back, or your money back on your credit card if you pay by credit card. But after 7 days, I believe it's 7 days, you're offered zikui or achlafa, which are basically the same things, right? Refund, exchange for another item, or getting store credit. Store credit, that's the word. Wow, long day.
What does alul mean? Something negative? Alul, aleph, lamed, vav, lamed?
Alul, with an aleph or ayin?
Ayin.
Ayin.
Aha. Yes. Okay. So let me actually write out the two words together because there's two words that are basically synonyms. Let me write this out. Okay, amur and alul. Let me write this in transliteration. Come on. There we go. More. Okay. Amur and alul both mean likely, liable, probably, supposed to, anything along those lines. The difference between the two words are as follows. Amur, aleph, mem, vav, resh, usually has to do with something that is positive. Alul is typically something that is negative. Okay, so it's also likely, liable, supposed to, but it's when that thing that is likely or supposed to or a thing is positive or negative. It is a little bit of a value qualitative thing on your side and qualifying it, but amur is typically for positive things, alul is for negative things. It's okay if you mix and match, it's fine. But typically, like for, you want to say, like in English, it's supposed to be, is amur liot, amur lehiot, amur likely, supposed to, lihiot to be. Or let's say someone asks you, you're waiting at a bus stop, and they ask you, is the bus supposed to arrive now? And then you answer, amur liot, or amur lehagia. Amur, supposed to, likely, either amur liot, it's supposed to be, or amur lehagia, it's supposed to arrive. Lehagia is to arrive, right? So both of these words are meaning likely, supposed to, probable. There's just a slight difference when you use them, but if you don't remember positive and negative, it's quite all right. But it's also the reason why you're going to hear amur a lot more than alul, because we like to stay a little positive here. Okay. Any last questions?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Will there be a chance of going over any kind of bill, either a sample of someone's bill, a make-believe bill? For example, it could be a gas bill, it could be an electricity bill, because they get very complicated.
Sure.
At a later point.
Absolutely. So we can go over some of the words. I know that been in discussion with Nefesh B'Nefesh to actually have someone who's their sole volunteering will be taking people through those. But I'm happy to go through one next week, just to get major words out of the way. And we'll pick one that's as universal for everyone as possible. So more than likely a phone bill or electricity bill, because municipality and water bills are per what region you live in.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to go through that because there's important words in there you should know regardless. What the
even things from the bank, because those can be very complicated and we don't really know what we're paying for. And you're always
Bank
paying.
is a little difficult to do only because it's usually a lot more personal information. I can't really.
I say, okay. I just thought maybe there were samples of, things like that you can do. Okay.
So
no problem.
Eileen just wrote in the chat that she thinks AACI or Anglo List have them, and I think also on Nefesh B'Nefesh's website they might have.
Okay, I work at AACI. What they have there is, I volunteer there, is they have somebody who can help you with the bills. But it would be nice if we could do them on our own also.
Sure. So how about next week we'll do one that, again, it doesn't matter what municipality you live in, because water is controlled by municipality.
Fine.
Your own no.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. That, thank you. Toda Rabah. Next week, as you heard, bills. As always, if you have any requests for what you would like to cover, please be in touch with us through Nefesh B'Nefesh. Likewise, tomorrow, if you signed up for this, you'll get an email with the recording of this session, so you can follow along with the screenshots and everything else.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה, everyone. להתראות.
Thank you so much.
תודה רבה.
That's some helpful points.